Welcome to Barca News. It is May 25th, 2024. And now that Hansi Flick will become Barcelona's next manager, there's been a lot of questions on how would Barcelona look like under the German manager. I decided to make this video in order to discuss the possible changes that we could see under Flick. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. My name is Mo, and before we begin with the news, just a quick reminder to make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. All of this helps this channel continue to grow. Also, if you are looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure you hit the kit bag. And if you are looking to place any sports bets, make sure you head to Bet Us. Both links for kit bag and Bet Us are down below in the description. And if you click on them, you do get access to special offers and discounts. Anyway, having said all that, let's dive right into this video because as you know by now, Hansi Flick will become Barcelona's next manager as Barcelona have decided to part ways with Xavi Hernandez, and Flick is expected to be announced the next Barcelona coach starting next week. Now, we know that Hansi Flick has spent the last 3 months analyzing Barcelona, watching tapes, analyzing the strength and weaknesses of this team, and coming up with a plan on how to improve the squad. This plan was, of course, presented to Deco, and then Deco took that plan back to Joan Laporta, who was absolutely impressed by what Flick had put together. And that's when Laporta decided that Flick will become Barcelona's next manager. And of course, the question is, what would Barcelona look like under Flick? Now, the first things that I expect to change or predict to change are 3 main things when it comes to the team. The first one being the formation, going from the typical 4-3-3 Barcelona formation to Flick's preferred formation, which is a 4-2-3-1. That's a formation that Flick used to win the sextuple with Bayern Munich. An incredible feat, by the way. Only 2 coaches in history have been able to accomplish that. Pep Guardiola being the first one, and Hansi Flick being the second one. Now, with this 4-2-3 formation, we could expect that the midfield will become a lot more balanced with the double pivot. Of course, it's something that Barcelona have suffered a lot from, especially since the departure of Sergio Busquets. And in the double pivot, we could expect to see probably Ilkay Gundogan next to a more defensive midfielder, which is what Barcelona will be hoping to sign this upcoming summer. The 4-2-3 formation is also expected to give Pedri more protagonism because he could play in that number 10 position, allowing him to be more creative, which is, of course, something that Pedri is definitely known for. And finally, this formation is expected to, of course, benefit Robert Lewandowski, who has been very frustrated with the team throughout this whole season, where his teammates have been unable to connect with him in the box. But with the 4-2-3 or 4-2-3-1 formation, Lewandowski could benefit from this because he's more likely to get more balls in the box, which is where the Polish striker thrives best. When he's in the box, he's after all, a box predator, a finisher. So more balls to him could improve his stats and improve his goal scoring. Another thing that we could expect, or the second thing we could expect to change, is, of course, a more direct play that Flick is known for. Not necessarily sacrificing position, but instead making possession more efficient, because that's another thing that Barcelona have suffered from, where most matches they have dominated in possession, but most of it has not been efficient or purposeful possession. It's mostly been just passing the ball to the side and back. But under Flick, we can expect a more direct football, which will come very in handy against teams who like to apply a high press, because then Barcelona can come out of this high press by exploiting the space behind defenders, which again, it's something that Flick's teams are very good at accomplishing. Now, the third thing that I expect to change under Flick is, of course, the trainings. We know that Flick likes to implement high-intensity trainings because he plays high-intensity football, and this is something that Barcelona will definitely benefit from, because we know that's been a constant complaint throughout the season. Deco attended several trainings. He did not like that the trainings were not intense enough or high intensity. And of course, that was reflected on the field where the team most of the season did not play high intensity football. And also, that's been a complaint that's been heard by the players. The players have brought this complaint up to the board on several occasions about the training not being intense. And under Flick, we expect that to change. Now, as far as the player themselves on who could stay, who can leave, who could benefit, etc., I did compile a few more things just based on watching Flick's previous matches against, as a coach of Bayern Munich or the German national team. But in the defense, it's going to be interesting to see who will Flick decide to start, because one thing that we do know about Flick is that he likes to play with a very high defensive line. He likes defenders who not only are strong in defending, but they are also fast, that they can pass the ball really quickly, and if possible, that they can participate in the attack. So we'll have to see who will Flick choose, because after all, he will have a plethora of defenders that he can choose from. Defenders like Araujo, Kouarsi, Koundé, Christensen, Mika Faye, who's expected to be promoted to the first team. So we'll see who Flick will choose for his defensive line, and we'll see how he improves on the defense, because again, he does like to play with a pretty high defensive line, which is something that has been a problem for Barcelona, because whenever they did advance their defensive line, a lot of times they were caught by deep passes to their backs, which the opposing teams have been able to exploit. Now, in the midfield, of course, there's going to be a big question about who is going to be the pivot. And this is where we do have new news, because there are German media outlets, especially Bild, who are a very trustworthy resource in Germany, who have been saying that Flick could sign Thiago Alcantara. Now, Thiago Alcantara, of course, did play in Barcelona. He played under Flick in Bayern Munich. Now he will be leaving Liverpool as a free agent, so Barcelona could pick him up for free. And the talks right now in Germany is that Thiago Alcantara could come to Barcelona for one season only, because he is, of course, nearing the end of his career. He's 33 years old. And after spending one season as a player, that he could transition into Hansi Flick's staff, because it looks like Thiago Alcantara would like to start doing some coaching. But of course, he first wants to join someone's staff so he can get experience, he can learn. And they're talking about Thiago Alcantara perhaps joining Hansi Flick's staff, maybe not even playing one season for Barcelona, and just directly joining Hansi Flick's staff as soon as he leaves Liverpool. Of course, this has not been confirmed by any sources to the club. This is simply talks that's being now conducted in Germany, specifically Bild, who again are a very trustworthy resource when it comes to German football. So we're going to have to see whether there's any truth to this news. Now, another thing that we could maybe perhaps see in the midfield is the arrival of Joshua Kimmich. We know that Joshua Kimmich is looking to leave Bayern Munich. Of course, Joshua Kimmich did shine under Flick. They have a good relationship, and perhaps Flick could ask or request for Barcelona to sign Kimmich, who's a player that Barcelona have been tracking for quite some time and will have the opportunity to sign this summer, because Kimmich's contract expires summer of 2025. And of course, being the final year of his contract and him refusing to renew with Bayern are definitely going to be looking to offload the player, who, if Flick calls him up, I'm pretty sure he's not going to say no, and he will want to come to Barcelona. Another change in the midfield that we could see is, of course, the arrival of Guido Rodriguez, because this is a player that Xavi Hernandez specifically requested of Barcelona to sign. Barcelona have reached a verbal agreement for Guido to join Barcelona. But of course, we're going to have to wait and see whether Hansi Flick will approve this operation, because if not, then this operation could end up falling apart. Or maybe, who knows, maybe Deco still insists on bringing Guido Rodriguez, because there was some news earlier this week talking about that Deco would like to bring Guido regardless whether Xavi Hernandez stays at the club or not. And the final change in the midfield that we could maybe see is that of Frankie de Jong, because there's been a lot of talks about Barcelona possibly offloading Frankie. And we do know that Hansi Flick does not like players who retain the ball for too long. Hansi Flick likes players that consistently are making quick passes, quick transitions, and we know that Frankie does like to hold the ball for too long. So who knows, maybe Flick does end up telling Barcelona or suggesting to Barcelona to offload Frankie, since that's something that Barcelona have considered, since they do have to make big sales. and Frankie would generate a lot of money for the club. Plus, he does have an incredibly high salary that Barcelona cannot afford. Now, one change that is expected of Hansi Flick, or at least a request that's expected of Hansi Flick, is that of a left winger. It's expected that Flick will request the signing of a left winger because Flick does consider that that's a weakness that Barcelona have. And we do know that Flick likes to use his wingers a lot. He likes to attack through the wings. And of course, since we only have Lamine Yamal on the right, Flick is expected to request the signing of a left winger because, again, he considers that to be a weakness. And he's also a coach that likes to use the wingers a lot. And this is where someone like Nico Williams could enter the picture. We know that Deco has decided that Nico Williams will become Barcelona's next left winger. That job could also be fulfilled by Xavi Simons, who we know wants to come to Barcelona, and PSG will be sending him out on loan since he does have that clause in his contract that allows him to choose what club he can go on loan to. Then it's expected that he will choose Barcelona, and maybe he could fulfill that role on the left wing because even though he is an attacking midfielder, he can also play as a left winger. And this is where Bernardo Silva starts to lose some weight because this is someone who Xavi Hernandez consistently requested. But since left winger will be a priority for Flick and Barcelona don't have money to sign multiple players, this is where it's expected that Bernardo Silva will lose weight in exchange for the signing of a left winger. Now, as far as the attacking line, this is where the fate of Vitor Roque could change, because another thing that we do know about Flick is that he does like a lot of attackers in the box. He likes to overwhelm the opponents by putting a lot of attackers in the box. He also does like mobile attackers who can, move around and not just wait for the ball. And of course, this is something that Vitor Roque is characterized for. So maybe Vitor Roque could have a change of luck, and maybe we can see Flick ending up keeping the Brazilian. And of course, there is João Felix, who, as of now, I expect him not to stay, not just because his price or Atletico Madrid's unwillingness to loan him out for another season, but because Flick is not the kind of coach that likes players that once they lose the ball, they just kind of leave the task for someone else to recover it. Flick likes his players to, as soon as they lose the ball, to immediately start pressing and try to recover it. And that's not something that Joao Felix is known for. Anyways, that is the changes that I expect or I predict that could happen. I am curious to hear your thoughts about this. What do you expect is going to change under Hansi Flick? Let me know down below in the comment section. Anyways, that is all for this video. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. And as always, peace, Barça.